With the NFL season fast approaching, I figured it would be a good idea to go over the potential worst team in the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals. What should be their strategy this year, at least front office wise, when it comes to handling this team? A lot of influx, a lot of question marks. Kyler Murray, will he be back? Is his contract tradable? Are they going to get two top five picks? What does the rebuilding process look like? We're going to discuss all that, but guys, getting into it, yes, I do think it would behoove the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe you don't have to go 0-17, but really try and get that number one overall pick. It is so important for your future. The players are not going to try and lose games, certainly, but just in general, looking at their schedule, at Washington versus New York versus Dallas, at San Francisco versus Cincy, pretty obvious they should start 0-5 unless Washington and Sam Howell really wet the bed week one. And this is a team that it's just so important. If you're going to be bad, then just be really bad. The Cincinnati Bengals perfected this perfectly. They had the run with Andy Dalton. They made the playoffs. They never won playoff games, but at least once they did their rebuild, it was a complete teardown. They immediately got the number one overall pick, not the number two, not the number three. They got the number one overall pick. They get their franchise quarterback, Joe Burrow, and then the next year they kind of get lucky. Joe Burrow going down with the injury, they weren't going to do anything anyways, but they end the season losing a bunch of games, get the sixth overall pick, and are able to draft Jamar Chase. I do think the Cardinals, based off of their potential draft capital, owning maybe the top two picks, maybe two of the top three picks, depending on how bad they and the Houston Texans are, because they made a trade with Houston. Houston traded up to get Will Anderson. They moved back to get Paris Johnson Jr. They could potentially have top two or top three picks, depending on how bad Houston is, starting the rookie quarterback CJ Stroud. And if you're able to get that number one overall pick, just completely tank, go 1-16, sit Kyler Murray out the entire year, make sure he gets healthy, and then possibly look to trade Kyler Murray while eating some of the contract to make the trade actually possible. You're looking at Caleb Williams, you're looking at Drake May, and then possibly the number one hope, if I am a Cardinals fan, it's getting Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr., and there are your three offensive franchise pillars. You've got a franchise left tackle in Paris Johnson Jr., who would be going into his second year. You've got your franchise quarterback, the Heisman winner, Caleb Williams, who suits the modern NFL perfectly. He's mobile. He's got a strong arm. And then Marvin Harrison Jr., the generational talent, picked by some people to win the Heisman as a receiver this year. That's what I would do if I'm the Cardinals, but it is very important. The issue is if you win 4 or 5 games and you end up with, let's just say, the 5th or 6th pick, and maybe Houston's pick gets you at like 4, so maybe you have 4 and 6, you might have to package both of those picks to move up to draft either Drake May or Caleb Williams. It's much easier to stay at the number 1 or number 2 spot, get either May or Williams, and then you're able to also possibly get Marvin Harrison Jr. with that Houston pick. The Cardinals right now by far have the best chance of selecting at number 1. That's a result of them having those two very high potential picks with them in Houston, 31% chance. And right now, in terms of NFL odds for worst record, the Cardinals sitting plus 340, the Houston Texans sitting plus 900. That is music to your ears if you are the Arizona Cardinals. And let me just say this, I am a Cleveland Browns fan, and I actively rooted against the Browns for multiple years because I wanted them to get number 1 overall picks, and they did. And they've had a little bit of a turnaround. Now, the Browns have also become one of the more hated teams in the NFL with the Deshaun Watson situation, but they were able to grab both Myles Garrett and Baker Mayfield with number 1 overall picks. And while people consider Baker Mayfield a little bit of a bust, at least they made the playoffs with him, and they were also able to win a playoff game. So just taking a look at this offense going into the season, Kyler Murray, that is the big question. How do you handle him? Is Colt McCoy going to be your week 1 starter? Probably. Are they possibly going to go with Josh Dobbs at some point in the season? They traded a late round pick to the Browns for him just a few days ago. And then you also have Clayton Tune, who I think could see some action later in the season. He is a late round rookie quarterback from Houston who did throw for a bunch of yards, but I would say if I'm Arizona, I'm keeping it short and simple. Kyler Murray is not playing this year. It is going to make him difficult to trade because obviously he's going to be very rusty, but you can at least say for sure if he sits out this entire year, he's going to be healthy. No questions asked. When you look at Kyler Murray's contract, it is a bit of a hurdle based on, let's just take a look at it. And NFL contracts are a little complicated to look at, but you can see Kyler Murray really pigeonholed the Arizona Cardinals. Murray a few seasons ago was in the MVP race early on, and then he kind of fizzled out down the stretch. But just after 3 years, he was considering sitting out and got a new contract, was able to force his hand as a franchise quarterback in getting that contract. It has not worked out. You can take a look at the cap hit in 2024, 2025, 2026, and 2027, and then there is a potential opt-out with no dead money. The dead money really goes down in 2027, so if a team theoretically, maybe they trade for him, it doesn't work out, they could cut him after 2026 and only face $7.2 million in dead money. But this is not an attractive contract. You are probably going to have to eat a little bit of it, but I do think there are landing spots for Kyler Murray. This was a dude that was considered a franchise quarterback just a season ago, and the injury is very concerning. His height is very concerning. He still is a former number 1 overall pick. He still has had success in the NFL at a young age. So I do think, maybe a team like, I don't know, the 49ers, if the Brock Purdy thing doesn't work out after they just traded Trey Lance, would they be interested in someone like Kyler Murray, possibly as an offseason trade where the Cardinals eat some money, maybe they get back a 4th round pick, they get rid of him, and then that would enable the Cardinals to move forward, move on from the Kyler Murray era, as short as it was, and head on into drafting Caleb Williams and Drake May, and then pairing either of those young quarterbacks with someone like Marvin Harrison Jr. And then also you do have another young tight end on this offense that I really do like. It's Trey McBride, who really didn't play much last year, but that is someone that I like. Rondale Moore could be a good young gadget player. Other than that, just looking at their receivers, it's clear they need a true number 1 receiver, especially if they're going to be drafting a young quarterback. But if you get Marvin Harrison Jr. and you have Trey McBride, a young security blanket, you've already got your franchise left tackle in Paris Johnson Jr. This team can come together, but it's going to require the Cardinals to really lose some games. The issue you run into, I feel like, what if they end up playing, maybe they start 2-4, they bring Kyler Murray back, they finish the season 7-10. Now you're looking at like a mid-first round pick. Maybe, Houston's pick ends up as a top 5. But it's just like the issue is Kyler Murray the future of your franchise when you've got a potential Caleb Williams right there who's going to have a way better contract? Even if you have to eat some of that Kyler Murray contract, I think the better scenario for Arizona and the dream scenario is getting 2 top 5 picks, possibly the number 1 overall pick, drafting Caleb Williams, and then drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. Going extreme in terms of how bad you are is always better than, we're going to win 5 games, we're going to go 5-12, we're going to go 6-11. It's not bad enough. Go do what the Cincinnati Bengals did. Rip the Band-Aid off. Cincinnati went 2-14. They got Joe Burrow. The next year, they had the number 6 pick. They got Jamar Chase. You could get both your franchise quarterback and your franchise number 1 receiver in the same draft based off of your potential draft capital. This is a huge season for Arizona in terms of them losing. And maybe it's a situation where Kyler Murray gets healthy midway through the season, but they're already 1-7 or 1-8, so they don't want to play him and just let him rest. And the idea is just get Kyler Murray healthy, get him presentable for a trade, allow teams to see him work out. Yes, he's healthy. Yes, he's a former franchise quarterback. We'll eat a little bit in terms of the contract, but I do think Kyler Murray would be wanted by certain teams. Teams always need quarterbacks, and Kyler Murray did have a lot of success the last few seasons before last year, kind of going off the rails and then getting hurt. But that is just my opinion on the Arizona Cardinals. It'll be interesting to see how they do. I mean, if you're talking about Colt McCoy, Josh Dobbs, just taking a look at their schedule, maybe week 2 against New York, they might be able to upset them. New York's decent, but they always play close games. At LA, I don't know about LA. LA is weird because there's also the idea that the Rams might tank a little bit because Sean McVay loves Caleb Williams or Drake May. It seems like Drake May would fit perfectly with Sean McVay, but they still have Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Maybe Cooper Kupp is injury prone. I don't know if he's still hurt, but at Seattle's probably a loss. Versus Baltimore's a loss. At Cleveland's a loss. Versus Atlanta, that might be a game they win. Oh, they face Houston. That sucks. Because they have Houston's pick too. Versus Los Angeles at Pittsburgh. Yeah, I don't know. You're looking at maybe like a 2-15, 3-14 type team unless Kyler Murray returns. There's just not much in terms of defense. The defense has okay talent, but there's no defensive superstar on this team. I like Budda Baker a lot, but other than that, I don't know. Either way, we'll have to see what Arizona does this season. They are expected to be the worst team in the NFL, and if they are, they really could quickly turn around their franchise with a franchise quarterback, go ahead and trade Kyler Murray, and then get a franchise #1 receiver with Houston's pick, but we will see. Either way, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.